welcome to Inside Chat 16. It's great to have you here. New year, new place. We hope that you're going to enjoy it. And for everyone who is going to watch a recording of this, trust us, it's a really nice place. So today we're going to speak with amazing speaker. It's great to have you here. Tonight we're going to speak all about how people decide what to buy. And Emily from Google is going to tell us all about the research they've done, like from recent years. Artyom here is a big fan of the research itself, so it's going to be a great one. And to start, can you just share a little bit more about your career and how you started, and we'll go from that.
Yeah. So I don't think when people asked me when I was a child, like, what do you want to do with your career? And I said, market research. Yes. But I think I accidentally discovered market research, like many probably of you did as well. I was 16, I was a waitress actually, and I was asking people, like, what would you like to order? I worked at a steakhouse, and so I asked, what kind of steak would you like? Would you like this salad? And I discovered very quickly that based on how you presented information, people changed the way that they behaved. And I thought that was really interesting because I was terribly bored as a 16-year-old waitress. And so I started playing with the different ways that I would present information. So I'm like, would you like to start with an appetizer? Would you like to start with a drink? Would you like dessert? We have this incredible dessert. We're running a special. This one, that one takes a bit of time to come out from the kitchen, but this one's really, really quick. And I noticed that by playing with those bits of messaging, which we would say now as marketing professionals, but at the time I just thought I was changing words in how I was presenting information out of pure boredom. But I was really interested in how people changed that behavior. So I think I started with that, went to university. I studied marketing and economics, got my master's degree in market research, and I was always really fascinated. Despite studying a lot of statistics and economic modeling, I was interested in the behavioral science of how people decide what to buy. And I was around at the time where Thaler won the Nobel Prize in behavioral economics, and so I think I was drawn in and started at Google in San Francisco, was working on the Pixel strategy team, and then moved over to London 4 years ago to work on insights for our ads team, which is where we kicked off the decoding decisions research in 2020. And then actually 2 weeks ago, I just started a new role within Google as a product marketing manager. So still within the ads world, but applying all of the great insight I've learned over the past 4 years, working with the insights team, and now applying it in a new capacity. So
congrats on the new role.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why did you decide to switch from insights to a product role?
Yeah, so I love talking to people about insights, if you can't tell the reason we're here. And I had an incredible opportunity over the past 4 years to not just do research, but to share the research with thousands and thousands of customers across over 10 markets in Europe, the Middle East, Africa. I was speaking with incredible business leaders across all these different markets, traveling to places as an American from a small town. Like, I never imagined myself speaking with business leaders in Dubai, but that's where things took us. And I wanted to switch because as I was speaking with these C-levels, with practitioners, with folks that are actually doing the marketing and the very strategic thinkers, I actually hadn't done marketing myself. And so I was giving a lot of feedback and theoretical advice on decision making, and we had all these models. Consultants love a model. We love a model, and I had all these models and all this theory of how marketing should work. But I realized I wasn't actually able to speak their language in a way that was compelling and impactful. And so I wanted to actually switch and get some experience working in marketing. Maybe I'll find my way back to insights eventually. I love it, but for now, I'm really, really keen to learn like how a campaign actually works and learn the marketing speak a little bit more.
You should consider sales roles as well. I think they would be great at it.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you. No, I've worked with many sales folks over the years as well, and it's so much fun. Solving people's problems, I think, is the crux of consumer behavioral research, insights research, especially as an in-house team, going to the various folks within the organization and solving their problems. So yeah, maybe sales as well. Watch this space.
And before we start to speak about the research itself, how was the switch also from the US roles to UK?
Yeah.
Did you find that like hard or easy, or what was the most like interesting part of that?
Yeah. Well, I moved during COVID. So that was a really unique experience. I didn't know anyone in the UK, but as I mentioned, I'm from Michigan. I grew up in a little town outside of Lansing, and I just was always so curious about the world. And again, I think that that's something we all have in common, is a curiosity about people, curiosity about the world. And I really wanted to just see what the world had to offer, maybe terribly naively. But so I went to university in Michigan, and then I moved to Detroit for a couple of internships working in the auto industry. I moved to Boston for an internship. Then I moved to San Francisco, worked in the Valley for a couple of years, and then moved over during COVID. And so I think moving when you don't know anybody into a new country during lockdown is really humbling, I would say. It was really hard. For the first 2 years even, I would say. I've been here a little over 4 now. And I would say at least that first couple of years, meeting new people, finding new friends. I think a lot of folks that are maybe not from London, no matter where you're from, if you're not from the place that you currently live, can probably empathize. But I mean, just business culture is different too. My first performance review, I was told to slow down. I was told, literally, I can't make that up. I was told, slow down, make it more interesting. You race to execute. And I think I'm making a very blanket assumption about my culture, but I think that's something that's pretty American, to like race to a conclusion, race to execute. We like to get things done very quickly. Whereas my manager, when I joined this team, was like, be more thoughtful. Make it interesting, make it worthwhile. Like, it's not worth publishing if it's not new industry insight. Like, if you're not sharing something that people haven't heard before, it's not worth publishing. So that, to me, I think was the biggest cultural work difference.
Love that. I think talking about racing to execute.
Yeah.
Marion gave it away. I'm a big fan of messy middle and decoding decisions. So I'd love to hear more about the work that you have done over the last 4 years.
Yeah. Just quick show of hands. I know there's folks that are going to watch this back later, but who's heard of decoding decisions, messy middle? How familiar? So a few folks, yeah. So let me, I guess, take you through. Of course, there's a model. So the way that we thought about consumer decision making started with a really interesting trend on Google search. And so we saw through Google Trends, which anyone has maybe used before, it's a free tool, you can see what's trending on search. And so we noticed that the search interest for best was increasing, and the search interest for cheap was decreasing. And that was really weird, because despite a global pandemic, despite the Great Recession, economic uncertainty, a lot of changes happening globally, pretty consistently across different markets, we saw this kind of cross of best going up, cheap going down. And when we started to investigate that a little bit more, we saw that a lot of folks that were searching for like cheap things, free things, which we thought would be really, search interest would be going up. We saw that the searches for free games, free movies, free music were driving a lot of those free searches, and those started to drop off with the advent of YouTube and Netflix and Spotify. So people were no longer coming to Google search for their free entertainment. They were no longer just searching for the cheap thing on the internet. They were searching for the best thing. They were searching for the size 3 thing. They were searching for the mini skirt that might look good at my cousin's wedding but doesn't clash with the bridesmaids' outfits. And people put those long queries into search. And I think especially now with AI, we're even more conversational in the way that we seek out information. And so that's what inspired the research itself, was this insight that people are using the internet in ways that they weren't previously seeking out information, which was quite incredible. And so that's where our search data could only take us so far. And so then we we started to actually observe consumer behavior. And so we set up a study where we looked at hundreds of hours of respondent shopping behavior. So we gave each of our respondents a task. We said, hey, go buy a dress that you told us you were in the market for and just shop like you normally would. The caveat is please record your screen and voice over everything that you're actually doing. So we can kind of observe this behavior as you're moving through this shopping experience. And so one woman was about to go on holiday with her partner. She was looking for a pair of trousers, and she started on Google search, and then she searched, great trousers that would look good in Cyprus. And then she clicked on the first search result, or maybe she went to the images page, clicked on one of those offerings, scanned through the website, not my size. The brand doesn't look like it's good for me. Too expensive. Weirdly not expensive enough. This feels like a scam. And would kind of jump back and forth between YouTube and search and Facebook. And at one point she's like, let me text my sister. She has the best advice. And so we couldn't obviously see what she was doing anymore, but she went off camera and started talking to her sister. And then she's like, oh, my sister told me about this new website. So then she typed in that website. All this to be said, we observed many different experiences that were like that woman searching for the trousers for Cyprus. Eventually, she decided on one that she really liked. She's like, I'll buy these. And so we took a look at all of those different recordings and all of that different shopping behavior, and we started to code it of what are people actually doing. And so we noticed that everybody starts with a trigger. They've got a trip coming up. They need to replace something that they've run out of. They saw an ad. They have a change in life circumstance. Maybe their son or daughter is starting a new school and they need school supplies. So everything starts with a trigger. And it ends in a purchase. But what happened in the middle felt really messy. And so we literally drafted it up on a piece of paper like, this is insightful, trigger, purchase, mess. Brilliant promotion. And no, of course not. So we started to actually code what was going on in that mess. And we learned that there are just really two key mindsets at play. People are either taking in information, they're exploring, or they're reducing their consideration set, they're evaluating. And so in between that trigger and purchase, there was this kind of infinity loop of those two mental mindsets. So exploration, taking in, evaluation, reducing. And people are going to loop back and forth between those two mindsets as many times as they need to before eventually making a purchase. Sometimes people go straight from trigger to purchase. It's like, I bought this thing on Amazon and I'm just going to buy it again. I'm going to reduce that time that it takes. And there's so many different factors. I know we only have like 30 or 40 minutes or whatever, but there's so many factors that influence how people decide to go from trigger to purchase. And we'll probably get into them more later, but I'll pause. But that's kind of how we discovered this decoding decisions, this model. And then we were able to start playing with some behavioral science and influence how do you give people information that helps them move through that exploration and evaluation more efficiently? How do you boost confidence for people? And by giving them messages that align to behavioral needs, which we saw with some of the different behavioral science principles that we were able to insert into our messaging as a part of some of our experiments, we then were able to see we could help our customers move through that exploration or evaluation more efficiently so that they could arrive at a purchase more effectively.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. And what were the next steps after you saw, okay, there is a big mess in the middle?
Yeah.
Like, what were the next steps?
I mean, it looks really great when you read the paper. It's like everything was so cleanly thought out, which is how everything goes. Yeah, it's like done. This is great. Everything is just line by line. So what we did after was, and this is around the time that I joined the team. So after the model is created and we're about to publish the paper, I joined the team and we start promoting it. We start sharing it with lots of different insights folks, with industry leaders, with some of Google's top customers. And people really started to react to the research, which was really, really cool experience. And so people were really excited, and we just got a barrage of questions. Some of the top questions were, okay, this is great in theory, but how do I actually apply this as a marketer? I manage our search ads. I manage our website content. I manage where we actually sell our product. And so those were three of like the major spaces. There were so many different questions of how we could use this insight of consumer behavioral knowledge But we really deep dived on those three, where we looked at how can you use behavioral science to help create ad copy on your search ads, how can you deliver better information needs on a website, and how can you influence whether somebody wants to buy from your brand versus your retailer. And so we kind of just started exploring all the different questions that we got, and we started all these little extra pronged research pieces based on those questions. And one of my favorite questions that we actually don't address in any of the reports, not to my knowledge, but one of my favorite questions, especially now that I'm working in a PMM capacity, is, so is the funnel dead? You know, you've got this new model of consumer decision making. So clearly, you know, you don't go from awareness to consideration to purchase, like funnel's dead. And I'm like, no, the funnel's not dead. The funnel's existed for over 100 years. You can't just kill something like that. Like, and so the way that I think about it, and the way that I've described it to the folks that have asked me about that is the funnel's not dead. The funnel is a fantastic way to organize your marketing. You know, are you running an out-of-home campaign or are you running a search campaign? But what I always try to reiterate is people don't go from I see a cinema ad to I see a YouTube ad to I'm on your website and then I buy. Like, that's not how we move through the world as humans. Maybe we see a cinema ad and then we talk to a friend and then we go to this website for this brand and then we see an Instagram post and then somebody else tells us this incredible experience about the product and then we see a bad review and then we question everything and we move through the funnel, this marketing spend that is very neat and organized. But we as human beings move through all of those different phases of the funnel, much more like the messy middle where we're exploring and evaluating information. So funnel's not dead. Funnel's a great way to organize marketing, but the funnel is not how people actually behave. So what was next was lots more questions and lots more answers.
And you talked about how a lot of the agencies, brands got very excited and you got this response. Yeah. I remember our digital media teams were almost created a roadmap of different cognitive biases to use in their ad copy testing and took it one month by month. Can you maybe also speak about some of the outcomes that brands and agencies actually took away from implementing these principles?
So we got a lot of requests from our top customers, from agencies, lots of LinkedIn messages of folks wanting to partner and collaborate and think about like how can we use this for our customers. We had one ad agency create an entire function of their business around like messy middle consulting. Like they took all their, I mean, it's not trademarked, anyone can do that technically. And so folks really, there was a lot of enthusiasm, which I think speaks to the universality of the actual work, you know, and we may get on to AI a little bit later, but even with AI is a tool for which people can more efficiently move through that exploration evaluation. But AI doesn't change the fact that you have to explore and evaluate information before making a decision. And whether the AI potentially in the future agent is doing that on your behalf, to be determined, to be seen, but AI plays a big role. So what happened with our customers? We had a lot of interest. I personally did a bit of consulting for different brands around how can you, first of all, how do you as like a marketing organization think about your customer a little bit more holistically? Again, I think it took the marketing world by storm a little bit because of the way that it changed the way that people thought about their customer and how their customers actually moved through a purchase cycle. But it changed the way I think a lot of agencies thought about like writing ad copy. And it's like, maybe we can leverage some of this behavioral science. Maybe this is a toolkit. And it maybe won't be perfect for my specific customer's needs. Maybe Power of Now, Social Proof, Power of Free, Pratfall Effect, like all the ones that we individually tested. But I think it opened a conversation of here's a unique toolbox of ways that you and your customers can present information that is really helpful for addressing those information needs as they move through the messy middle. So got a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement. We at Google had a lot of conversations, but I've been way more impressed at the conversations that have not included us at all, and that this research has kind of taken on a life of its own via blog posts, industry conversations, entire functions of businesses being made. I think it's super cool, and we welcome all of it.
brilliant. And just to double click, if I may, into the brands differ vastly, right? There will be some very credible brand names. There'll be small up-and-coming upstarts who perhaps don't have the credible brand name, but may have a very good offering. What sort of differences did you see in different customers take those, let's call it the middle and cognitive biases, and utilize them in different ways?
So a big part of the theater of the research was around these brands that we invented for the sake of the study. And so what we did was we set up a conjoint exercise where we had all of these different behavioral science propositions, and we asked our survey respondents, what are your favorite brands? What are your second favorite brands for this category that you're in the market for? And then we showed them the logo of the brand that they said was their favorite, and then we showed them a logo for a brand they had never heard of before. So in the hotel category, for example, we used Stay in Hotels. We had a little Stay in Hotels logo that looked terribly boring. Our creative direction was make like these 20 logos for these different brands that are not eye-catchy, boring logos. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, trust us, just boring logos. And so we created all these logos for all these different invented brands. And then what we did was we created propositions that had superior expressions of behavioral science. So a really simple example would be social proof, which is a really fancy way of saying star ratings. And so for the invented brand, we gave it 5 stars. For the favorite brand, we gave it 3.5. And so that's one example. We tested 6 principles in our original research. And so power of now, power of free, category heuristics, so mental shortcuts. Oh gosh, I don't want to be on the spot to remember all of them off the top of my head, but basically we gave the invented brands the more superior expressions of these things. And because we wanted to see kind of what's the role of this brand and what is the role of these superior expressions of behavioral science. And we were able to shift a really significant share of preference across all of the categories that we tested just by giving these invented brands, which we were using to simulate maybe a new market entrant or a challenger brand in the space that someone hadn't heard of before, to give them those superior expressions of behavioral science, to give them the maximum opportunity to try to win some share from that first choice brand. But what we learned that was actually really interesting, and one of the big questions that we got after publishing this research is like, are brands dead? We love the really like the funnel's dead. Our brand's dead. It's like we love reinventing things in marketing if we can. No, brands are not dead. And what we saw was, yes, we were able to win share from these favorite brands, but I would always then go back and say, okay, but if you're the favorite brand and you have these superior expressions of behavioral science, like what does that mean for you? You know, because we supercharged the propositions for these invented brands that no one had heard of. And we gave, I mean, three stars these days is pretty bad. We gave the favorite brand this really subpar messaging experience. And they still were able to win like some share though, you know, because they were the favorite brand. And so we would always say, you know, brand is clearly not dead. Brand is super important because if you're the favorite brand and you have these really powerful messages supercharged with this behavioral messaging, like you can really win more share from your customers that already love you. So it's kind of a win-win. But yeah, brand played a big piece. Brand played a big part in our studies, and we learned that brand is very important. And again, hypothesizing, like I wonder how that's going to change and evolve with the role of AI as well. I don't know, but it's quite exciting to think about.
So in that infinite loop from search to buying, like trigger like a social proof would help them to end the loop, right? So was that the meaning of those 6 principles you said?
Yeah.
Like if someone saw that someone has a really nice like social proof or stars or reviews, so that would help end the infinite loop, right, from the search to buying. Was that the whole idea?
Yeah, ideally. So anyone who's studied behavioral economics, behavioral science, psychology, we know there's hundreds of behavioral principles that exist in the world. So we chose 6 specifically because when we were doing that observational research, we noticed that there were really 6 principles that continued to crop up subconsciously. Of course, people weren't like, wow, social proof is present. oh wow, there's an offer that's ending soon. That must be power of now. Like nobody thinks that way. I think that way, but it's really weird. And so, but we noticed that like those were the things that people were commenting on, or people were seeing as a part of the propositions as they were doing their natural shopping. And so ideally, yeah, we wanted to include them because we discovered that we kind of delegate some of our decision making off to these mental shortcuts. So for example, a star rating is basically just a shortcut by telling us that these 600 people that reviewed this product viewed it well. So that's evidence to us that that product was probably pretty good. Or if that product has got some authority bias, if that product is recommended, if it's toothpaste and it's recommended by dentists across the UK, they're probably going to say, oh, I mean, dentists, they probably know a lot about toothpaste. I should probably believe, that this is probably a good toothpaste. So that's just our way of boosting confidence because we're mentally delegating those decisions off to third parties that we trust or don't trust, depending on our own personal preferences. But at least speaking from my own experience, I weirdly studying shopping for so long, I hate shopping. And so I've discovered that like social proof for me is one of the most powerful behavioral inputs. Like if I have a friend that's very fashionable and she's like, I love these shoes, I won't do any research about these shoes because I hate shopping, and I'll just go buy them, like without any thought. And so I think all of us individually have different principles that we lean on a little bit more than others, but at least for me, social proof all the way.
For sure. I wanted to double click and almost argue the opposite. So do you think there's also a dark side of brands, companies using these cognitive bias and almost abusing them? Because I remember that I think in Q4, the Competition and Markets Authority took Emma, the mattress creator, to court of some of them abusing some of those, let's call it countdown tickers of like prices going to increase when in fact it didn't. So have you given power to people to abuse these cognitive biases?
Yeah. I think when you introduce a concept, unfortunately, there's probably always going to be bad actors that try to take advantage of it. In the report, we called that out specifically as sludge. We want to improve confidence and boost consideration. We don't want to create sludgy, cognitively challenging, or unlawful or wrong experiences for people. And that was a fear when doing the study, and it's still a fear every time I talk about it. It's are we helping people make better decisions, or are we interfering with their decision-making process? And I think it always comes back to, are you telling the truth? I think it's helpful if you say, I have 5 stars, because then that's really showing your consumers like, hey, I've got a really great offer. Lots of people love it. Hopefully you'll love it too. And then there's people who buy ratings and reviews, and they're just click farms that give ratings and reviews because they know that that's a behavioral nudge that people really rely on. And I think that's really unfortunate. But I think in any industry and in any time like new technology or new thought comes in, there's always unfortunately going to be bad actors at play. But ideally, folks will use the information and insight as a part of that toolbox that I was talking about earlier to help their consumers, rather than create a negative experience or lie to them, which would be the worst case.
And people are getting smarter. They're not too stupid as well. They're going to see through a fake review. They're going to see if they hired an actor to say about, because it looks like everyone these days has a 5.0 review or stuff like that. So I saw somewhere, read these days that it's not good to have a perfect score.
Yeah, because then people don't trust it.
Yeah, these days you need to have like 4.6.
Yeah. No, honestly, we've seen the same in our research. Yeah, people don't trust it if it's perfectly 5 because they're like, that's insane. Like, that's not real. No, so I think the concept, I've done a lot of research on the concept of trust, just in general, unrelated to decoding decisions, but I just think it's so fascinating. And I've gone through a lot of like academic theory on trust and how it's built of kind of 3 major factors. To trust something, you need to feel that they are benevolent. You need to feel that, like, aside from trying to make a legitimate profit, they're going to do it by the user. Then they have to have integrity. You have to believe that what they're saying is correct, is true. So if they're having a countdown and that countdown is not factually correct, you're breaking that trust. You're breaking the integral part of that trust, the integrity. And then the third piece is ability. So you need to believe that they have the ability to deliver on what they promise. So for example, if you're on a hotel website and you purchase from them and then the website crashes, they clearly didn't have the ability to deliver on what they need. But I saw a piece of research recently this is a bit of a pyramid as well, like where it's not just about ability. You have to have a foundation of benevolence. Then you have to have the integrity. Then you have to have the ability to deliver on those things. And I think all of that fits in, especially now in the internet age and the information age that we're going through. Trust continues to play such a big part of our decision making. So a bit of a side tangent, but it's something I'm really fascinated in.
That's awesome. Yeah, actually, I think many people want to know that messy middle research has evolved over the years.
Yeah.
So there was version 1,
Yep.
and then you released another version,
Yep.
2.0.
Yep.
Can you maybe speak about the differences or the updates in that new version?
Yeah.
And maybe give us a
The
little
teaser
preview
for version 3?
3.0?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit earlier, that after we launched the first decoding decisions piece, we got all sorts of questions. And so the second report was breaking those questions into the context for marketers. So we then explored the role of the messy middle and the role of behavioral science in somebody's search ads, in somebody's website content, and at their points of sale. So where they're choosing to sell and how their brand fits into the retail ecosystem and the retail landscape. And then after that, we got more questions, which was, we had this model, right? But we don't really move beyond the model. We don't look at the experience, and we don't look at the memory of a purchase and how that memory of purchase influences the outer layer of exposure that we're constantly getting new information. So there's this circle of exposure surrounding all of the messy middle. And so our third piece of research, we actually explored the role of experience and memory and the concept that maybe if you create an experience that is so valuable, they won't go and explore and evaluate again. They actually may be triggered to purchase and say, I loved those boots that I bought. I'm gonna go back and buy those same boots again. Or I love that toothpaste. I know exactly what it is. I'm gonna go buy it again. And so we explored the role of experience influencing memory.
I'm just trying to picture the model. So
Yeah,
the
so
leaf,
circle of exposure.
it goes to experience around the site.
Around the purchase. The
right.
purchase. And so we explored, I mean, experience technically is the whole thing. Experience is everywhere as well. But we explored it in the model around the role of purchase. And then we kind of went off the model and went off to the side a little bit because we were like, we know that this feeds back into that circle of exposure. Because, for example, even if I hear about an experience, like if Marin tells me about how he bought this television and it was the worst experience of his life, that's going to influence my perception of that brand. Even if I never bought a television before, him telling me about that is going to potentially influence my messy middle. And then I might have a memory because Marin had such an awful experience buying this TV. I might remember that story when I go to buy a TV. And so those were the types of things that we wanted to explore, and actually the version 3. So that's the paper that we will be publishing later around, how does that experience influence? And my favorite principle that we introduced in that third report is actually the peak end rule, which is really fascinating because it basically says, I'm very, very oversimplifying, but it means that you remember the emotional peaks of an experience, so really positive or really negative, any peak that you have that makes you feel emotional, and then you remember the end. So you might remember me talking about the peak end rule because this is a real emotional peak for you. I'm calling it out. And then you might remember the last thing that happens. Maybe you bump into a friend on the way home, and then that's going to influence your evening experience because it happened at the end. And so we explored that a lot in the role of experience, where we actually hired actors to play call center employees. So you bought a product, we gave our respondents a problem, we had them contact these actor call center employees, and we, in the optimized cell that we created, we gave our respondents a free gift, and we put that free gift at the end of the conversation to see if we could make them feel more positive. And theoretically, if you're a consumer, going back to the can we use behavioral science in nefarious ways? If you're offering your consumer a free gift and you're apologizing for the bad experience that they had to go through, and then they remember that as a positive experience, like, I think that's a really nice example of a way that this use of behavioral science can actually improve the consumer experience and improve your brand messaging. So anyway, 3 different decoding decisions kind of books that we've been working on, and all of them have kind of evolved along the way just based on conversations and consumer questions and sales calls that we've had with various folks. Yeah.
I have to follow up. I'm sorry, man.
We're over time.
So in part 3, it seems that you're going outside of that messy middle framework into something that I think, Thomas, you and I discussed it in terms of IKEA. You can't just map the fully digital journey. Sometimes things happen outside of it. But how do you anticipate that agencies, brands will react to that message? Because to them, I assume it'll be them saying some things are out of your control.
Yeah. I love presenting the 3rd decoding decision stories to C-levels for this particular reason, because I've presented it to a few groups of practitioner audiences, which is great, and I think a lot of folks find the research fascinating, but they're like, my job kind of ends after you've seen the search ad, and then it moves to the UX people, and then it moves to the customer service team. Like, I can't actually do anything about that. So it's actually quite fun. I presented this to, I don't think I can say their brand because they didn't give me permission, but a very large UK travel company, and I presented this to their C-suite, and it was such a fun moment because the CEO just looked across the boardroom and he's like, you, his CMO, his head of marketing, you, his CXO, and you, his head of UX, and he's just like, you 3 need to talk. Because clearly this is a huge problem. And what we discovered is that all of these things that aren't marketing factors, the design of the website and the messages that you share and the customer service, all of those are brand touch points. And those influence your marketing metrics. And so even if you yourself as a search ad practitioner aren't managing the fact that your customer service is going one way or another, that is inherently going to impact your brand image. And so if you're needing to report on brand metrics and satisfaction metrics, some of those things that are outside of your control are actually influencing your marketing messages way more than anything you are actually doing. So it's a fun story for C-levels because they actually have the control to say, you, and you, talk, because this is a huge problem. So that was a fun presentation.
Just about the peak end theory, I'm also a really big fan, and everyone who wants to explore more, there is actually a brilliant book called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. So everyone who wants to learn more, it's a really great book. We actually did the research on it at Picator like 4 years ago, so it's a really interesting like book, and the whole theory, like the pecan, and they also speak about four like activators for the whole experience and stuff. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. So when the version 3 is going live, is that still like
still in the works?
Okay.
Still in the works. I can't share
This
more
year,
now,
or?
but hopefully.
Okay. Shortly before we turn to the Q&A, I know that you just moved to a new role.
Yeah.
So how did Insight as a skill set like obviously helped a lot, and I'm sure that it's still early in your new role, so you can't say. But do you think that the Insight role before is a perfect start for a PM role?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think that, to be completely honest, I feel like insights and understanding the way that people think and the way that people behave is probably a really nice introductory role for anything, whether it's still staying within the marketing family or moving into something else. I've loved it so far. I think when you come from an insights background, your gut reaction is always to think of the consumer first and to always think of the behavior first. And so I was joking with a few folks that I was talking to before the session. Something that's actually quite really surprised me is how many opinions so many folks within the organization have about what the marketing should say and look like and do and what products it should align to. And it needs to say this about this feature. And this director over here is very influential and they hate it, so we need to change everything. And once you kind of Frankenstein all of those opinions together, you kind of lose the user need sometimes, and you can lose how people actually behave, and you can lose the user insight that kind of kicked off the marketing campaign in the first place. And so that's something I've observed that I find really fascinating is my mind always goes straight to how do people behave. And I assumed that that's how everybody thought, and I'm learning very quickly that that's not how everybody thinks. And so I absolutely think Insights is a fantastic way to kind of pivot into any part of your career, whether you want to stay in Insights forever, or use it as a springboard to the next phase of your career. I think it's incredibly useful, whether you're a product manager, a product marketing manager, honestly, even working in finance or consulting. Like, I think that it can really be a fantastic jump board because you constantly are thinking about that end user and what they actually need.
So we are now ready for questions. Does anyone have a question? Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Letitia, yes.
Yeah. Do you think the use of AI in the Google search bar now is going to shorten the search evaluation process
Yeah.
in the funnel? Say, for example, with the woman that said, like, I'm going to go to Cyprus,
Yeah.
I'm looking for a dress, I'm thinking the questions, the answers I usually get from ChatGPT are very like, oh yeah, so if that's what you're looking for, then probably you want to check these websites.
Yeah.
Is that what AI in Google is going to do?
I don't know what Google AI is going to do, and I don't know how everybody is going to, I guess going back to the theory of like trust, you know, even if Gemini, for example, gives you like, here, buy these types of trousers based on your needs, buy them. You might be the kind of person that's like, fantastic, I hate buying trousers. Like, I just got a shortcut, and it might be really helpful. But somebody else might love buying trousers and might love the exploration and evaluation of going through that shopping experience. They might find that really fun and not want to reduce that. So I think it's going to differ on the person. You know, what do you enjoy doing? What do you not enjoy doing? And I think for the categories you really don't enjoy shopping for, I think AI is going to be fantastic, a fantastic tool. And my colleague Sarah Ashley wrote a fantastic paper in partnership with Wired Magazine, actually all about this. So I can share it, and maybe we can share it with the group, about how AI can help make shopping more fun and help improve your shopping experience in that way. But I think it's really going to depend on, do you trust the results? Do you have enough information to satisfy your exploration and evaluation confidence needs? You know, do you feel confident enough to just buy straight from this AI's answer? Do you really not enjoy shopping for it? Is that something you really want to cut out of your life? Or are you really welcoming the opportunity to not have to deal with it anymore? And I think it's so fun, especially when we think of like the future role of AI agents, like training an agent in AI to know your likes, your dislikes, and send that agent off for you to go shopping. I think that's so fascinating. And I don't have the answers, and I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I think it's really exciting to think about how different personalities are going to engage with that technology in different ways.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
So to your point about the messy middle, and it's kind of there's areas where we just literally don't have access to that kind of information. We're not privy to where people are getting experiences or how they're kind of learning about a brand. Do you think that would almost suggest we need to invest more in upper funnel activity to like build awareness, or do we just cater more of our efforts to the middle of the funnel?
I think it's a really good question. And it's something my colleagues that spend all of their time and energy working on marketing effectiveness are trying to solve. And we have a fantastic paper that I just got to have a sneak preview of coming out soon. So maybe I can share that, and we can share it with the group as well, about the role of brand marketing and how that influences effectiveness. So we can make sure to share that. But in my mind, I'm not a marketing effectiveness expert, but from what we've observed through the messy middle and this whole role of the funnel is that you need to be present throughout all of those different marketing functions, because you don't know, A, what's going to trigger somebody's purchase, and you don't necessarily know whether they're going to move straight from, a cinema ad and go straight to purchase, or, go on Google search and then go to the website and make a purchase. And so I think what the messy middle taught us is that you kind of need to be everywhere all the time, because people don't move in that sequential way. They move in unpredictable ways. And so by being present when people are looking for you, when they're shopping, scrolling, searching, you have a better opportunity of meeting them. So would I tell you, go invest more in the awareness phase? I think you should be present there. Can I give you some really good concrete advice on how much money you should invest? No.
Kind of a related question to that. Was there any kind of splashback about attribution then, where people were like, well, the messy middle proves that the whole attribution conversation is pointless and we should abandon it and just spend money on things we like?
When you say attribution, can you go into some details of what you specifically mean?
About who gets to close the sale in the funnel and last click and all the rest of it. Did messy middle kind of come into that conversation as a way to justify that actually that
there's lots of things driving this decision making. No, it definitely did. It definitely did. Yeah. And a lot of folks were saying, especially at Google, where they're like, you've got to be present everywhere across the internet. I think that definitely helped that narrative for sure. And because the research backs it up, it's like you do need to be present, as we were just talking about. But did it influence attribution conversations? It definitely made it inspired conversations. I'm not privy to anyone who was like, we need to stop measuring attribution, because obviously we need to prove our marketing effectiveness, even if it's broken in some capacities, or even if it's limited, maybe is a better word. So no, I don't think anybody was like, cancel last click attribution or cancel all attribution measurement. But I definitely think it's a door opener for talking about the role that some of those upper funnel marketing activations, or maybe out of home, or the immeasurable parts of marketing. It definitely opened a door to have a bigger conversation, especially with executives on, hey, look, this is how consumers actually behave. We need to be present as they're exploring and evaluating. And they're exploring and evaluating at a lot of different points in their purchase journey. So yeah, I don't think it changed them, but it sparked conversation.
Amazing. Okay, I think on that note we're going to close for tonight. It was amazing, and thank you so much
Thanks for
being
having
here.
me.
Yeah.